everyone. Thank you for coming. You kind of have that fear of who at a developers conference would want to come and hear about being human. So my topic, which I recognize is probably like that diverse topic that they have to have included in every conference. So the companies who pay your entrance fee, right? The executives can be, oh, this is a well-rounded conference. They can go learn soft skills. So I get that. I know that. And that's all good. I want to kind of call out there first, recognize you each are in your comfort zone, right? With the topics being shared, surrounded by framework and codes and stacks. So forgive my tech lingo if it's completely off rails as I go through. For me, I've never spoken at a tech conference. This is a first thing for me. Leadership conferences, company events, things like that is where I get to that's kind of my jam. But I'm excited to be here and to share some of my favorite all-time learnings with you. So I do recognize many of you may have looked at the title and the agenda and been like, brain coast, right? I can sit back, turn off the brain a little bit, and chill going through this topic, and that's good. I sat through a couple sessions yesterday where I had to turn off my brain because it was so far over my head. I was like, ooh, this is a good nap time. Not sure if I'm retaining anything. Even so, though, just for the record, the skill set of the cognitive emotional mapping is essential and necessary work. But it is hard, it is heavy, and it is messy. Now, I do send out a promise with the learnings I share. I don't know if anyone else can do a promise. I promise that if you take the time to kind of just grab a nugget or two, right, of what I share, one thing to take home, and if you embed it, it will outpace every technical skill. It'll amplify your career more than any other IT certification or anything that you can add to your resume. Now, I just dropped IT certification. My husband is a speaker and a trainer in the security realm, and he focuses on ethical hacking and all the certifications that comes with that. So every time I drop this promise and this challenge that the skill set and the learnings I share will outpace anything he teaches, it just triggers a pretty heated debate in our room. So I probably just ignited that. So how many here are saying, who is Alice Meredith? Raise your hand. Yeah. I even wonder that sometimes too. I have two hands raised. Well, let me just do a quick run through of who I am, why I'm here, and a little bit about my background. So I have just spent 30 years in corporate America. I know Blockbuster Video didn't really get global to all these countries. Who here is familiar? Old enough to there we go. Old enough to remember that there was a time when we actually rented VHSs, right? Had to go to a store, use a membership card, and to bring the movies home to our house. I talked to some young audiences at big corporate events and, right over their head. What? And then after 15 years with Blockbuster Video, I ran about 100 locations on the West Coast of the United States. I moved to a company, Best Buy, mainly because I saw the writing on the wall. I was one of the lucky ones who saw technology coming and Blockbuster Video not changing. And yes, they turned down a Netflix offer. Everyone heard that story? Any type of a change for $50 million. The owners of Netflix were in debt, $50 million, and they approached the CEO of Blockbuster Video. It took them like 10 attempts to get him to actually even show up to the meeting. And Blockbuster was arrogant, snobby, right? $billion company. Listened to the two Netflix owners and turned him down flat. The meeting was like so short, but I'm sure that's a decision that they heavily regret. After my 30 years in corporate America, my husband, who was an author on Pluralsight, familiar with Pluralsight? Who has a license to Pluralsight? Maybe about 10 of you. Those who do, whoever clicked on Alice Meredith? Don't worry about it. Even my own husband, we were at a breakout, an event, like a retreat, corporate retreat, and he jumped into this breakout room and was listening to the speaker, and afterwards he and I are chatting, and he was just so engaged in the learnings that he heard, and the guy was teaching my content from Pluralsight that my husband had edited and hadn't even watched. So I take no offense to no one clicking on. Typically, if you're a Pluralsight customer, unless your company has required the learning, you may not come across me. But I have about 32 courses. I teach leadership, HR, change management, diversity and inclusion, and all the warm and fuzzy stuff on their platform. But most importantly, 7 adults call me mom. 7. And 15 grandlittles call me grams. And rock concerts are my go-to. My downtime is always filled with the funnest and most outdated rock concerts you can find. I'll be there. Now, we just launched our youngest child like 4 days ago. So this is my youngest son. I love this picture because I was just coming back from an 18-month COVID long hauler that kicked my butt. I had lost every bit of muscle mass, and I bribed my son to be my personal trainer. And I was like, I want your abs. And it worked for like 1 day. He just needed cash for a hot date that night. We took a picture to kick off mom's journey and getting her strength back. Never happened again, right? Typical teenager, I'm good mom. I was just short on cash that one time, but we just launched him. And the day after we launched him, we married off his son, and then my husband and I got a flight and came here to Copenhagen. Just kicked off, this kicks off a 14-country, 4-month tour for both of us. We do a co-speaking engagement together, but we wanted to come to Copenhagen, didn't have any work in this area bringing us here, so this tech conference was a great opportunity to get us here. My husband's mom is from Copenhagen, and we have never been here, but wanted to kind of get the vibe, see a little bit about where she grew up. Okay, so Alice Meredith. First, let's take a survey. Who here, Windows user? Raise your hand. Oh, Windows is pretty prominent. Mac? Okay, Linux? Okay, are there any more out there? Probably. I just don't know about them. As you know, each operating system, right, it is fully functional on its own. We can code and create, well, let me fix that. You can code, create, and deliver amazing results that I get to enjoy. The things get messy, though, between them without a compatibility layer. The same goes for each of us, right? As humans, we are all running our own internal OSs made up of our personality traits, our learning styles, our life experiences, our decision-making skills, right? No two humans are alike. We get that. We know that. We experience that. Some are sleek and designed focused. Some are ultra secure and stubborn about updates. And others, well, probably should have received a patch like 3 updates ago. Even so, take a minute and zoom out and just think about just this conference, right? Hundreds of people walking around, and no two are none of us. You can engage, we can converse, we can chit-chat all we want about any topic. And within minutes, we can see all the differences, right, that are embedded in us. Now, zoom out even further, and in your organizations, there are thousands, and in the world, billions, with no two humans alike. Just that magnitude, sometimes when you stop and think about it, is just surreal. Now, Macs, Windows, Linux, right? They each have their own kernel, file system, way of doing things. The same is true for people, right? We have our own kernel embedded in us. We have default settings, and we have our own unique way of processing things. But too often, we're mashed together without a translation layer, right? On our own, we function beautifully. But put us on Teams, on a project group, even in a Slack channel, and we find friction, full-on system crashes, and compatibility galore. Now, again, not because any HumanOS is flawed. We're just running different configurations, right? Different apps, all trying to process the exact same data in different ways. Now, our natural configurations, right, shape how we show up, and they make sense for us. So I've spent decades in the messy work of untangling. My specialty when I was in the corporate world was untangling culture, broken cultures, right? And repairing morale issues with teams all across the United States. In a nutshell, the one thing I've learned is that most every workplace friction just flows from this, right? Flows from a bunch of humans, our compatibility issues just mucking up our work environments. Now, so the question is, for all of us, is where do we begin to unravel the messiness our human experience creates? The best life lessons I found are embedded in my favorite songs. Who can guess where I'm going with this? Yeah, I did a pretty good job. Who's on screen? Michael Jackson, right? But we start with the man in the mirror. I mean, he's saying that message loud to, audiences all around the world. Our starting point is with us. Who here has ever successfully changed somebody else? Yeah. Not a soul, never raised a hand. We think we're kind of changing the younger kids in our family. Parents here? We have parents here? Yeah, sometimes we think we're building them, and then they become adults, head off, do their own thing, and we didn't change a thing, right? Everyone just goes off on their own and creates their own life, their own different, unique experiences. But yes, we start with the man in the mirror. The absolutely only person we can change is us. So let's break down what our HumanOS is actually made of, right? The kernel, every operating system has one. We have one. It's the heartbeat. It's the core drivers, our values, and our motive. The stuff that runs deep but doesn't really change. Then we have the app layer. Now, is packages probably the better verbiage to use here? My husband was like, I'm not sure if apps really fits. And I'm like, if I started dropping terms like packages, people would just roll their eyes because that is not part of my natural lingo. But these apps, sometimes we deliberately choose them, and sometimes they are just kind of embedded in us, right? Without us even hitting that yes button. And then, yes, some of the apps are just bloatware, right? Draining our energy and slowing us down. Next, we have our configuration and our settings. This is where it gets fun, settings that shape how our systems run day to day. Now, the key thing is before we can translate, understand, or even learn to adapt anyone else's OS, we've got to understand our own, right? We've got to figure us out. And we do this first by running a diagnostic on ourselves. So let's break this down. Okay, our kernel is our core driver. My best recommendation, I'm a little hesitant to share this here, because not a lot of people are fans of what I'm a fan of. For getting started here is through psychometric tests. So before you start doom scrolling on your phone, hang with me a little bit. These are things like the Myers-Briggs, Gallup Strengths, right? Dispersonality, MBTI, the People Code, Big Five personality traits. Has anyone taken any one of these? Yeah, a lot of companies use them, right? I have friend groups who define themselves by their MBTI, their Myers-Briggs letters. Pretty interesting. Some people go really deep, and some people just kind of coast on the top of the learnings these bring. But these tools help us uncover the why behind what we do, how we show up, decisions that we make, right? Figuring out our own why. Now, I'm going to confess here, I am a psychometric junkie. And because my husband is in the room, he is my 24/7 tech guru I get to travel everywhere with, and we have been together almost 40 years. That's a long freaking time to be with somebody, right, who isn't wired like you, right, who is so different, marches to their own drum. But I blame him for this addiction. We were married back in the day before it was kind of a thing to live together, to figure out all the nuances and kinks of each other's personality style, right? That wasn't a thing back in our day. So the literal morning after we got married, he rolled over in bed, asked me a question, and within seconds, I jumped out of bed, threw something across the room at him, stormed out, slammed the door. And that week, I bought my first book trying to understand gender differences. It was a long ago time of, I think, men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or the other way around, right? Just figuring out the differences. So who's curious what his question was? It was, what's for breakfast, babe? I was out of there. And we had a big, long talk after that. But anyways, now 40 years later, that journey launched. I have gone deep in every one of these personality profiles. I have been typed as an animal, a number, a color, a grouping of numbers, a Hogwarts house, a combination of birds, even a mythical creature. I'm joking about the last three of those. I'm not talking about the social media quizzes, right? What type of Disney princess are you? I'm talking about the nitty-gritty, research-backed, human-focused personality profile testing. I'm going to spend a little bit of time on this because if there's one thing that has changed my life, it is figuring me out. And I found myself stumbling through my career, through my work relationships, through my relationships with my social group, my family members over and over again. I would grasp for a new concept, a new idea, a new communication style. It felt like I was hitting the reset button over and over and over with each new concept that came to be. But the real change began when I stopped trying to figure out everybody else. My boss, the people I worked with, my partner, my children, right? I was so deep in, why are they so different? Why are they so different? Why? Why do they show up this way? Don't they know it's supposed to be like this, right? Why are they marching that way when I march in this way? But once I started I flipped that script and just focused on me, understanding myself, why I do what I do, right? It felt like once that paradigm happened, it felt like I was then patching and updating and not starting from scratch, right? And then the work just kind of compounded. And I spend time here because this work of figuring out my kernel, the core piece of me, transformed almost a 40-year marriage, my relationship with 7 kids. It leveled up how I led my teams, right, with more empathy, with more connection, with more understanding. It gave me the skills I needed to navigate some tough conversations. No other thing in my life, no other learnings, and I'm a lifelong learner. I love to learn. I'm one of those personalities that teach me, right? Most times I'm just looking for one nugget, one little drop of something, because so much of the rest goes over my head, but I love it. And nothing I've learned has helped me as much as the work that I'm sharing with you here today. So I get it. Personality profiles are not perfect. They don't completely define us. So many of us are like, don't label me, right? But they don't do that, and they really shouldn't. But research does show, well, ChatGPT says that research does show, and we know that ChatGPT is never wrong, right? No, research does show that 70% of these profile tests are accurate in relation to reliability and the validity of what they share. And you know what? I'll take it. 70%? I have sat across from therapists who, bless them, have tried to figure me out, tried to understand how I'm wired, and don't even come close to what a really solid, understanding of a personality profile does. Now, let's walk through these real fast. Gallup Strengths Finders, one of my favorite. The Gallup organization put this together. Marcus Buckingham is the name behind this work, and they help you identify your top 32. This is probably my third favorite. I have a top 2 that I like. This is my third favorite, and maybe it even kind of butts up there to my second favorite. And I worked for an organization, and literally every single person in the organization had to take this test. A lot of you raised your hand on some different personality profiles that you've done before, and I know a lot of those are team-based, company-based, right, org-based. They kind of introduce it into the team so we can start understanding each other better. But Gallup's helps you decide what are my 5 top talents. The cool thing about these teachings, it is the only personality profile that tells you, forget about your opportunities. You're never going to succeed if you focus on your opportunities. I was frustrated when I joined this organization because I'm like, tell me what's broken. Tell me what's wrong with me. I want to get better. Fix me. Don't just tell me you're good at this stuff. But it took me a while. It took me probably about a year to kind of embrace the learnings here. I have a Pluralsight course where I go deep into the Gallup learnings because it really rocked my world after I opened my mind and helped me see that you will find greater success when you just do what you're naturally good at. I mean, it makes sense now. But years ago, I was like, what? Right? We're supposed to work on our opportunities. We're not just supposed to march through life doing what we're naturally good at. Gallup flips that script. So if you are interested, awesome learnings to explore. Enneagram. This is another one. A lot of teams do this. There's 9 different codes in the Enneagram, and they help you identify your core fear and your core desire. That's kind of what they're based on. And the MBTI, this is the most globally widely recognized, and truly a lot of all of these other ones flow from the foundation that MBTI gives us. Now, DISC is another one. It defines 5 different personality types. And flip-flop. The big 5 personality type identifies 5 on it. And the DISC personality has different dimensions that we fall into. Now, my all-time favorite is the people code. The most, not sure the proper grammar. The least recognized? I don't know if that's good grammar or not. The least recognized. Okay, we will go with that one. I have been using all of these. I've gone deep into all of these, but the Enneagram and the People Code are my all-time favorite. Enneagram, because they work with teams. I've done a ton of work with teams. I use it with my teams, kind of understand each individual on the team, how they connect. And then the People Code is the one I come back to. I think 25 years ago this work has been out. Taylor Hartman. Now, another personality profile is out there. It's called it's a color code, and this was originally named color code, and then it was kind of copied, and then another group came out, different colors, different definitions. So they changed their work to the people code. But the follow-up to it is the character code. So this is a combined book. Audible, if you're an Audible fan, grab it, listen to it on your walks, biking, if you just want to kind of dig deep. The people code did more than that, any of the gender research I did back in the earlier days. It goes into like, your partner's a yellow and you're a white. This is how you show up. And as I listen to this, I'm like, yes, that is so real. It hits home. So people code is my all-time favorite. And then it is relevant in both personal and our career spaces. So I'm going to dig a little bit on the people code because this is my all-time fave, and we're figuring out our core, right? And the people code gives you one core motive. That is the kernel. However, whatever personality psychometric test you use, it can be MBTI, but whatever that definition is, it helps us figure out our natural wiring. That is the core, our kernel. So each color has their core motive. Reds are their core motive is power, right? They desire to make things happen. Blues are loyalty, right? They are driven by connection, by relationships, and deep values. Yellows are driven by fun. If it's fun, they're in it. They love it. And whites are driven by peace. They bring calm, stability, and safety. My husband and I joke a lot about are the differences, not just in gender, just in, whoa, we have the most diverse relationship you can imagine. Everything from differing political views, differing colors. My main primary color is blue with a secondary red. His main primary color is white with a secondary yellow. Taking this full-on test, not a single question did we even score the same. It just kind of validated the energy, the craziness that our chaotic relationship has had. Now, every psych test, right, has opportunities and strengths. Okay, I reference these as balconies and basements. It just gets in my head a little bit better, because we learn this stuff about ourselves so we can clearly say, I'm leading from my balcony. I'm showing up today in those good traits, or I've just sunk down into that basement, right? And we recognize that. Now, for example, the balcony of a red in the color code. They're decisive, they're action-oriented, they're results-driven. A lot of executive leaders in our companies have this red core. But their basement, they're controlling, impatient, and dismissive. So you see kind of how we see when we're in our basement and then bring ourselves up to the top. The blues are balcony. They're compassionate, they're dependable, and they're committed. But their basement, they lean towards perfectionism, guilt tripping, and they are overly critical. Both of them, their self and with others. The yellows, enthusiastic, right? Optimistic, great at connecting with people, but they can be scattered, impulsive, and lack follow-through. Our whites, balcony, patient, steady, adaptable, but they can avoid conflict, disengage, or resist making decisions. And I'm going to throw my husband. I've never spoken before. I speak a lot at leadership conferences, not here, but I've never had my husband attend with me, so I'm kind of picking on him while I'm up there. But when I was, we were walking around Copenhagen looking for a place to eat the other day, and I was like, "You're making all the decisions." And we walked, and we walked, and we walked past so many places that had yummy food. And inside, I'm walking by him going, "You're such a white, you're such a white, you're such a white." But you know what? Relationships, just this part of our world, right? It's just work, home, personal. And remember I told you this story with my very first learning 40 years ago on gender? Let me tell you how these learnings flipped my script in my relationship. Instead of, my husband's name is Dell, instead of situation popping up and me going, oh, Dell. It was just like, oh, men, right? I could like, be frustrated with the whole gender, not just an individual person. And the same with the colors, right? It's just like, oh, you're such a white, instead of, oh, Dell, you're driving me insane. It kind of depersonalizes it when we get to understand ourselves and even me. So, in the blue world, overly critical, right? And I'm like laying in bed last night. I'm like, nobody is going to show up. You're at a developer conference. Who's going to want to come hear this lady, right, whose topic is completely off the charts, but overly critical, right? I just am beating myself up, imagining a room of empty chairs and just like, oh, please let me sleep. So again, I don't personalize it because I can just be like, oh, stop being so blue, right? Pull yourself out of this, Alice. So again, we have our balcony and basements to help us in real time recognize when we're in our balcony, when we're in our basement, and then intentionally make the choice to move. Now, here's the cool thing. Every psychometric test gives you balconies and basements. They all bring a different perspective. I just resonate the most with the color code. If you're interested, and you don't even have to do this, this is old school slide. You can take the test, but you can just ask chat or your AI platform, give me 50 questions, right, to help me define what color I am in Taylor Hartman's the People Code or the MBTI, right? You can do this all on your own. So, or you can go take the formal test. Now, if psychometric tests are not your thing, if you're just like, I'm not going down there, don't want somebody else's opinions to define me. My next LinkedIn newsletter that is coming out next week has a list of a ton of activities, self-reflection practices we can do to kind of identify a little bit more about our core and our kernel. So now our apps layers, and I mentioned this earlier, this is stuff we've picked up along the way, right? It's been installed on our system. I don't know how to elevate this, where some we chose and some we weren't chosen. So maybe as we go through the list, you'll kind of get what I mean here. As we'll flip through some of these, right? Our family upbringing, right? The scripts and habits we absorbed as kids and thoughts, right? Cultural background and expectations. Huge, especially in the gender space, right? Just our cultural background, how we're brought up, right? How our environment looks at genders. This one shows up really strong. Education and training, right? From school to mentors, the lessons that taught us how to think and act, right? And then our belief systems, religious or not. These fundamental influences shape how we see people and how we see our everyday purpose. Also, workplace environments, right? Those kind of define us, right? These are apps, how maybe we're embedded in a work culture where leadership shows up one way and they treat the new hires or the tech teams or the IT department different from the marketing and sales department. I mean, there's all these nuances that flow in our work environments. And then peers and friendships, right? Extremely influenceable in installing different apps on our system. Media and society and personal life experiences. These are the most pivotal because they're connected to like real life memories, real life emotions. So these personal experiences really hit home. Some of these apps and beliefs that are instilled on us are useful in specific contexts. But once in a while, we will get hit with malware, the toxic influences we were never designed to carry. These over time, instill within us what I reference as bricks, right? Bricks that build walls between us and other people. Pink Floyd said it best in his song, a brick in the wall, and in the lyrics, we don't need no thought control. Now, this song reminded me and my classmates, this ages me, of all of the influences, biases, prejudice, stereotypes that just get thrown at us and creates these bricks. Now, if you're not familiar with this badass song, I am sure your parents are, but pretty sure Pink Floyd, Brick in the Wall, yeah, yeah, of course, Alice. My husband was helping with the slides, and he was like, it's a British band. I had no idea. He's like, of course, it's global. Everyone knows Pink Floyd. Okay. So I want to pause and shine a light on this layer, on this of our apps, and these bricks that they build within us that shape our perspectives. We all recognize that systems break if we don't understand what's going on underneath the hood. This layer creates within us implicit rules. I know we've all heard of implicit rules, but I'm going to walk through just a few of them. We all have them. We carry them with us. But I want you to just think about how these differing perspectives on how we look at life can create some of the smallest minor misunderstandings, right? The problem with implicit rules is that we forget that they're just our rules, and we start thinking of them as the rules, right? That everyone should carry this thought or this belief. So some of these are conflict is bad versus conflict is healthy. Seeing is believing versus believing is seeing. Silence means agreement versus silence means disagreement. This is huge in my relationship with my husband. We're completely different points of view. Work and personal life should be separate versus building personal connections at work is essential and healthy. Mistakes are failures versus mistakes are learning opportunities. Now, these are simple ones. Did I have any more there? No. These are simple ones. But now, wrap your head around implicit rules installed on us through apps that relate to identity, gender, and race. I mean, it gets icky, right? We feel it. You guys know what I'm talking about. You can go deep on some of these. These are just some of the light and simple ones. Now, this layer also embeds in these bricks, right, within us, what I reference as BAPs. BAPs are our biases, assumptions, prejudice, and stereotypes that are just, whether it's conscious or unconscious within us, we all have them. Nobody gets a get-out-of-jail-free card on BAPs. There's like 1% of the population who walk through life thinking, I'm good. I don't carry prejudices, right? I don't fall for those stereotypes. That 1% are the worst culprits, right? Because they don't see it and recognize it in themselves. So just outdated scripts running in the background that we have to identify. A lot of people ask me like, why are these so like intense in our psyche? And our brains, neural leadership teaches that our brains are wired to make lightning-fast decisions based on limited data. We default to patterns and beliefs we've picked up along the way, and those beliefs often come from our childhood, right? Think of those cringe-worthy moments where you're like, Grandma, you can't say that word anymore, right? It's just like, ugh, how long has that been part of my environment? They also come from the media we watch, right? Growing up, books, movies, song lyrics, TV shows. Back in the early 90s, I was one of the first female directors in this company, literally the only woman at the table for a lot of years. And just that experience kind of embedded my own BAPs about how females needed to show up because I had to be number one. The ditty ran through my head. I don't know if you guys grew up with this childhood ditty of anything boys can do, girls can do better. I remember going to work, right? Whole group of men in the meeting and just singing that song, right? To kind of boost my self-esteem. And it's not true, and it's not gender nice, right? To my counterpart. But it was just embedded in me because of that life experience. And of course, movies, right? Think of childhood. Who can think of some childhood movies that may have truly distorted our beliefs on gender? They say no one engages in the audience, and I'm going to prove them wrong. I want to answer. I want to prove them wrong. A TV show that today could not air. Like they don't even run it on the reruns. All I know are American ones. I don't know. Happy Days, All in the Family. All old Disney movies. Bam, right? I got an answer. I got engagement from the audience. It's good. I can move on. Thank you. Yes, all of these influence us. Songs that we listen to. Now, the personal experiences ones embed deeply. I shared my experience of kind of in the early 90s, right? Feeling that minority because of my gender, but the same thing can be, so say you worked for a leader and the way you were treated or you were in trouble for something, you couldn't wrap your head around it. Our brain, when we like don't know the answers to things, it just makes up responses because we need to function. We need to know the why. Why am I being treated this way? There's no clear answer. So the response could have been, oh, she's young and inexperienced. And that embeds within us a brick, an assumption, a prejudice towards young leaders, right? Now, why this all matters is because all of these BAPs, implicit rules are BAPs, right? These directly fuel the conflict and misunderstandings that are in our lives. And once we recognize them, we can figure out and intentionally know to uninstall it and do that work. And I mentioned earlier, some of this work, it's emotional, it's heavy, it's messy, it's exhausting, but it's work we need to do to uninstall some of these apps that are causing us, right? This is where we change our part in the conflicts in our lives. Okay, a little bit behind. Okay, so I kind of went around the block there with implicit rules and BAPs, but let's kind of get back to our HumanOS, that our kernel and our app layers, right? It gets glitchy at times. And that's where our configuration settings come in. It helps us deal with the messiness of just being human. So our configuration settings, these are the default modes. These are the patterns. Our kernel, our core, it's hard to change, right? And even those influences take a lot of work. But in our configuration and settings layer within us, we can start adjusting the settings and figuring out how to become just a better human, a better individual, and do our part to minimize conflict that we face, not just at work, but everywhere in our lives. Now, let's go through some of these. So our settings, our communication style, right? Some of us go on and on and on and on and take forever to explain something. Another one is short, fast, quick, get to the point. Our conflict navigation. My number one popular course on Pluralsight is my conflict courses. And it's so outdated and so old, and I created this years ago, and I'm like, why are people still watching this? I haven't had time to update it. It's so grainy and blah. But conflict is everywhere. How we manage conflict. Do we avoid conflict? Do we face it head on? In leadership, you got to learn all the conflict styles because you got to lean into the different mediation work, right, based on the situation at hand, but understanding our natural conflict, our decision-making style, our risk tolerance. Are we high risk, low risk, right? Learning preferences, emotional expression. We all can see how emotions are expressed differently across billions of people, right? All unique, all different. And then collaboration approach. Introverts, extroverts, right? Yeah, I'm all in. I'm interested in being a part of this stretch assignment, joining this team, being a participant in employee resource group. Yeah, let's collaborate, let's rock and roll. Our adaptability settings. My work is all about helping leaders change. So the speaking engagement I do with my husband, he talks about what he references as a tech tsunami, right? It has hit land. He's known for saying AI is so 2022, or even before, like we learned yesterday at the keynote. I'm like, holy cow, I got to get him to change. AI is so, what was it, like 1958 or something? There were some early dates she was talking about. My mind was blown. And then I talk with leaders about cultivating change readiness with their teams and their companies for these emerging technologies, right? Because the hesitancy of so many individuals and different personalities. And then even our feedback preference style. We all get feedback. We can't get away from feedback, whether it's our partner, our kids. Holy cow. My young son who you saw there, feedback that has been in my mind for 18 years. The bloatware running is like, Mom, you're so old. And I'm like, stop this. We have an age difference of 20 years between him and my oldest son. So he was raised as a caboose, and we are the old parents, and he loves to remind me. So I get feedback all the time. Work, home, clients, and my kids. Now, there's so much we could explore here, right? Each one of these concepts is we could talk, not everybody, I could talk a good hour on every single one. I love it, I get passionate about it, it's what I do. But if you're like, where do I even start in working on those settings? Which of those settings will make the biggest difference in my life? My answer is always communication and conflict. Those two are the underlying that just trigger like combustible tension, misunderstandings in our work environments. Now, cool factor, this is what I love about this era we live in, is we have a personal career coach on call 24/7. I don't know if you guys use your bestie, your AI. I don't know. My ChatGPT is a real sexy man with a British accent. Anyone have a female ChatGPT? Oh, my husband. The only one who has a female ChatGPT version. I love the fluidity that ChatGPT brings. Can be whoever and whatever we want him to be. But it's that personal coach. I use it all the time. Sometimes I feel sorry about 10 years ago, a life coach, career coaches, anger management gurus, everyone's getting certified and trained, right, to help us to teach other humans. And I'm like, I got one. I got mine, right? I love it. I feel bad for all of those folks because AI has given us a sandbox. Did I reference this right? Yeah, I didn't reference it right. I hear the word. I know what it means, but in it, we can practice without fear of judgment. We can experiment with different approaches, right? We need to have a tough conversation with our boss and our leader. Man, bam, right? Practice it. How do I even just start this conversation? And then we can role play, right, with AI as the other person. We just kind of define the characters. Now, why I like psychometric tests is I know, like my kids, I know this man I've worked with, a client for 10 years. I know him better than I think anyone knows him, right? I was his, long-term coach in the HR field. And I programmed AI, given him all the characteristics of this gentleman. AI knows all of my color codes, my MBTI, all of the information that I've defined, my communication style, my conflict navigation style. So I've customized it. Matter of fact, I'm going to skip past this. Back in the day, in my other audiences, I say, if you're a bit geeky like me, and I'm like, ugh, I'm the least geeky person in this room. I can't use this. Here, matter of fact, I bet I'm the only person without a GitHub account at this entire conference. I didn't even know what GitHub was till the keynote speaker. The very end, she had the QR code, right? I scan it, takes me to GitHub. I was like, what's GitHub? And then I Googled. Yesterday I was Googling, what's GitHub? What's GitHub? My husband rolls his eyes and laughs and yeah. Anyways, I created my own ChatGPT and share it with Pluralsight customers in a course I have, Generative AI for Leaders. And if anyone's interested, DM me, connect on LinkedIn, and I'll send you. It's not a public one, it's a private one, but it's really so outdated now because you can use projects and OpenAI or all these other versions to do the exact same thing. Now, here's the magic of starting with a man in the mirror. As we deep dive into our own HumanOS, we automatically start recognizing the differences and the personality styles, the natural preferences, apps in other people. We're starting to realize and to see, ooh, there's something going on. There's something running in their system. And we give a little bit of grace to them. It's kind of like buying that unique car, and you think, ooh, a new model, a new color. You don't see it. It's going to be different. Then you leave the car lot, and everywhere you look, you see your car, same color, right? Because you're just tuned in, right, to recognize those. But starting with the man in the mirror enables our curiosity. We start recognizing, and we ask better questions to understand other people's whys. Now, let's be honest though, compatibility mismatches feel like full-on, crazy-ass system crashes at times. We have so many scenarios, personal, family, social, where an argument goes from 0 to oh no in seconds, right? So what do we do with these? And we walk away going, I did not handle that very good. Or at least I walk away thinking that all the time. And I had this phrase in my head. I'll be like, stop it. Like, Alice, you know better. Stop it, stop it, stop it, right? I keep repeating the same behaviors, and I know I don't like them. I know they're not appropriate. I know I can show up better. So I created this framework, and it's called the Stop It framework, to help us flip some of those mistakes or scenarios that went south into learning opportunities. So the S, just an acronym, reminds us after the fact to just scan our own system. What was going on? What triggered? What app? What bloatware was running that took me down this path of not showing up the best I could possibly show up? Think then reminds us to think about what default settings fired off, right? Why did I go into defensive or withdrawal mode or over-explaining mode in that scenario? And then we orient. What this references is you kind of orient to the other person, and you flip the perspectives from yours to theirs. What was going on for them? What apps are running in their background? This isn't how my boss normally shows up. What could have incurred his behavior this morning to show up differently than is typical for him? And then we pivot. Now, the pivot is in hindsight. This is a self-reflection exercise where we pivot in hindsight and we consider, if I had shown up this way, if I had used this communication technique, if I had approached it with more empathy, we pivot and role-play those scenarios. And then I reminds us to implement a patch for next time. What do I need to change? What communication, what approach do I, tone of voice, whatever it is, do I need to do? And then we test, right? And that's the practice mode that we're all familiar with. Throw it out there next time we come into a similar scenario. Test it, right? Now, for those scenarios, there are some, I told you this is exhausting work, there are some huge, badass experiences that we get engaged with at work, in our personal lives, in our social communities that just are too overwhelming. And the last thing you want to do is go through a mental exercise like I just showed you, because it was exhausting going through the experience. Why would I sit there and go through it again, right? So for those big A ones that we face, I want to leave you with an analogy. I tell people to just gas them up. Add gas to them and move on. And gas reminds us to give grace to ourselves and to the other person. Assume positive intent and then just seek to understand. And then put gas on it, walk away, and hopefully just learn, right? We learn from our behaviors. And at the end of the day, we're all everyday people. Part of one human family with our own unique wiring. I came across this concept in the early teens. I was raised in a very, very, very poor family in a very high-end, rich U.S. ski town. And when Joan Jett and the Blackheart song came out with the lyrics of, makes no difference what group I'm in, different strokes for different folks, I'm no better and neither are you, I am just everyday people. Reminds us that our HumanOS this whole human experience is extraordinary, exciting, energizing, and inspiring. But when we if we allow it to be, right? When you pull back the layers of the onions, we were up last night. There was a shooting of a political figure, social media figure, right? Charlie Kirk in the U.S., right in our hometown where we're from, and our daughter's husband's part of the security at this college and the event, and talking to them on the phone and walking through this. And then you think of the wars that we're facing, the protests, right, happening over in your neck of the woods. It's just all about differences, different beliefs, different opinions. And then it just enrages into these horrific, dark, horrible attacks on humans, on the human race, on our own family. And it all stems from not just, it's okay to believe different, think different, act different, show up differently in our everyday work environments. Whew, that is all I have for you. Thank you for coming. I'm so glad there wasn't just one person, although I did commit. If there's only one person who showed up, I was bound and determined to become their bestie. We were going to leave best friends if that happened. Thank you for coming. Connect with me on social media, and I appreciate you joining and making my first experience at a tech conference okay. So, thanks.